Hello, business finance students. I want to talk about a very important concept in finance that we call it net present value or NPV. Net means whatever you get net. Present value means the value of something at present. How much is the value of something at present? And I want you to think about it in this way that you have $100,000 and someone tells you that if you give your money, your $10,000 to that person for the next 20 years, do you see this is year one, year two, year three, for 20 years, that person is going to give you $10,000. Are you going to go up, but after 20 years, he's or she's not going to give you any money? Is it a good deal or not? Are you going to enter into this deal or not? One thing you will know as soon as you know that the person is giving you $10,000 for 20 years, you multiply the 10,000 by 20. That means that person is getting your 100,000, but is giving you $200,000 back because 10 times 20 is $20,000, $200,000. Therefore, is it a good deal? Should you enter into a deal with this person? Of course, imagine that person is a credible person, has credits, and imagine it's a bank, for example. Should you enter? The first thing you would say is that you will look at what the interest rates are. And if the interest rates someone tells you are at 6%, then should you give this money to that person? One thing you know definitely is that if you put this $100,000 in the bank and they give you 6% interest, that means the bank is going to give you $6,000 here. And imagine that it's going to give you $6,000 every year. That is, if that's the case of the bank, for example, in that case, after 20 years, your $100,000 is still going to be there. You are not going to lose that money. However, in the second deal, which is here, you are giving 100,000, but the person is giving you $10,000 instead, and is not going to give you $100,000 back. You won't get anything. Which one is a better deal? One way to look at it is that you say, okay, you have to calculate the net present value when the interest rates are at 6%. One thing you have to know is that $10,000 20 years down the road is not that much of a money. As you all know, 10,000 is a lot of money in today's, you can use it to pay, the tuition for 1 year, but 20 years from now, the tuition is not the same as what it is. Therefore, the question is that if this is paid 20,000 20 years from now, how much in today's money would it worth? You can use the calculator. Here it is. I used it. This is called financial calculator, finance calculator. And what I did is that number of period, that means 20 years from now, interest rates are at 6%. And in the future, I am going to get $10,000. And between, I am not going to get for anything, just for that particular 10,000. And when I click calculate, this is what the value of, $10,000 20 years from now is what it worth in today's money, which is 3,000, and I can take that money and bring it here and put it right in here. And here it is. I make this one. That's what it is. For year 19, I also can calculate because that person is going to give me $10,000, 19 years from now. Therefore, I will do the same. I will go to my calculator, and here instead of 20, for example, I put 19 and I say calculate, and it will be 3,300, and I can put that and copy that, and so, for example, bring it here, and then I put it here, and I calculate that for every year for the 20 years, I add them together. If I add them together, it suddenly comes to $114,000, which is not a bad deal. Means that I am giving $100,000 of today's money, although the person is giving me $200,000 back, but in today's money, I am giving 100,000, and when I convert it to today's money, it becomes 114,000, which means I am getting $14,000 more than what I am giving the person. Therefore, it has a net present value of 14,000. It is a good deal, and I'm going to give this my $100,000 to this bank when I know that the interest rates are going to be, 6%, for example, for the next, 20 years. We use this concept all the time. Financial managers use net present value. Let me give you another example. Just now, completely forget about, 10 years of interest. Imagine you want to get a master's degree, and someone comes and says, imagine that your uncle has given you $100,000, and you are thinking about, should I go and study and pay this $100,000? I'm going to right away, the university gets it from you. And you say, should I go for master's degree? One thing you do research is that if you get your master's degree in business, you are going to get $10,000 more for the next 20 years. Again, you will do the same calculation. You say, okay, if I put my money 100,000 in the bank, it gives me 6%. And if I go and invest it for education, this is how much my salary is going to increase. Should I go with the project? When you calculate the present value of this money, the present value is 114,000. But the net present value is when you subtract 100,000 from this one. If it is 14,000, it's a positive number. You say, oh, this is a good project. You will accept the project. I want you to understand the concept of net present value. Financial manager constantly accept projects. Now let me give you another example. Imagine you are a farmer, and if you buy, there is an equipment that if you buy it for your farm, it will cost you $100,000, and the interest rates are at 6%. If you do that, that equipment is going to increase the revenues of your farm by $10,000. Because it is increasing by $10,000, at the end, the net present value is positive. NPV is 14,000. Anytime there is a net present value which is positive, then you accept the project as a financial manager. If there is less than that, negative net present value, then you don't accept the project. That means that in case of your MBA, if it was giving you, for example, $8,000 every year instead of $10,000, then here, rather than 114, we would have come to 98,000. And then when I subtract 100,000 from 98, I get to negative 2,000. In that case, you would have said, oh, it's not a good idea to get MBA. It's better for me to put this $100,000 in the bank and get 6%. Therefore, depending on, these cash flows that we get, we have to make our decision. And it is a difficult calculation. If for 20 years I have to calculate this one and then put it here, for this one I put it here, is there any way that I can, in one calculation, I get this $114,000? I did, and yes, if the financial calculator will do it for you, how would it do it? Because for the period of 20 years, see how nicely I have done? When the interest rates are at how much? 6%. Instead of future value, I put periodic payment. Do you see? It's a periodic payment. Look at here. Aren't it? This is periodic payment to us in case of what is that called? MBA is giving you periodic 10 for 20 years. It is giving you. Do you see how in one shot I did that? And then in that case, the present value of that is how much? negative 114. That's where I brought my 114,000 here. It's close to, Therefore, that's where the concept of net present value comes from. And I want you to be, next week we will have problems for you to do the calculation for net present value. And it is a very interesting concept, as I said. Generally, financial managers, finance managers have to always look at net present value. Anytime you have a positive net present value, you accept the project. If it is a negative, companies constantly have to do this calculation. Apple has to do it, Amazon has to do it because they constantly invest, and for that investment, they see how much of money they are going to get for their investment. And of course, how many years, and they look at the interest cost of capital that you learn. That is, we call it here interest, but in this semester, in this week, we know it as, cost of capital. And we want you to know about this concept that next week is going to, we are going to talk about it.